So welcome everyone to the Event Show Live. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for investing your time into joining us today, and appreciate those that have joined the show over the last months. Really do appreciate your support, and also welcome to those that are joining us for the first time. It's great to have you join us in this forum. The purpose of this show really is to give a voice to our industry, to hear from some of the influential leaders in our industry, to hear their thoughts on, I guess, some of the challenges that we're all facing, but also some of the opportunities that are emerging. And very much the theme for today's show is about some of the events which are re-emerging or have re-emerged, and how we can learn from what's been going on, and how some of the leading organisations are approaching that. So do hope you walk away with some things to use in your work. Please do drop any questions you might have in the Q&A box. We certainly try and get to those as we go. And please feel free to chat. It's important to hear from our audience as well as our panelists today as well. So please do drop any questions and thoughts you have in the Q&A box or the chat box. My name's Andrew O'Loughlin. I'm obviously the host of this show. A couple of years ago, I started up a podcast, the Event Show, as part of my work in helping people navigate their way through our event industry. And it seemed a sort of a natural transition a couple of months ago to host these webcasts to bring us together and hear from people across our industry. So that's part of the work that I do, and also help people design and rebuild their event experiences. So making sure that we can provide those inspiring and safe events that we all need to do. So, but my panelists are great experts in that, so I'll introduce them now. First up, I have Dave Beeche. Dave's the Managing Director at IRONMAN Group for the Oceania region. Morning, Dave. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you.
Great to have you on the show. Also joining us, Francis Soyer. Francis is one of the tournament directors at Tennis Australia. So welcome, Francis.
Yeah, morning, Andrew, and great to be on the panel with Dave and Liam.
Great to have you here, Francis. And also Liam Howe, who's a director at iEDM. Welcome, Liam.
Thanks, Andrew. And yeah, as Francis said, happy to be here.
Great to have you all on. Thank you very much. And a great spread of perspectives today, and coming from different parts of Australia and New Zealand. So be really interested, obviously, in all your thoughts. Dave, I'm going to come to you first. Would really be interested in hearing from you in terms of in your role, what the focus is for you and your team right now. You've obviously got a lot of events coming up over the coming weeks in different parts of our region. So would love to hear a little bit about your role at IRONMAN and what your team's focused on right now.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And it's with some trepidation that I talk about what the future holds, because like all of us, I have no idea what's coming down the track. So normally I'd give a bit of an intro about our company by saying that we're the largest mass participation sports company in the world and in the region. I look after Australia and New Zealand. I would ordinarily say that we have around 30 events, 100 staff across 5 offices, and we deliver events to around 200,000 people a year. In this environment, I'll probably rephrase that by saying I don't know how many events we have left. Yes. And so look, so far this year, we got 3 events away before lockdown in March, and then so far we've cancelled 7. We've still got about 12 on the schedule coming up in the back half of the year. Best guess would be we'll be lucky to get half of those away. With the theme of re-emerging events, I was certainly hoping to be able to talk about the Kiwi case study as the shining light, and we've got 3 marathons on our schedule coming up September, October, November, Hawke's Bay, Auckland, and Queenstown marathons, and I think I jinxed it, because about 4 days ago I sent a paper up to our head office saying I was 90% confident in our levels, ability level to deliver those events. And of course, the day after, we've had another outbreak here in Auckland, and we're back in lockdown. So I'd say, you know, one of those events is the earlier one is now at risk. We certainly hope things will bounce back, you know, for the others. And, you know, I guess what's keeping us busy is, and, you know, I've been asked quite a few times actually this week, so what are your team doing if you're not delivering events? And it is flat out. I mean, the ops guys are still flat out preparing for an event in the hope that it gets up. And then if it gets cancelled, they have all the unwinding of all the suppliers and everything to do. And then the marketing guys are flat out communicating with our audience and telling them what's coming and what's happening. And then if there's a cancellation, there's a whole heap of work in that. But you've got to monitor all your social channels and get the right messaging out around that. Athlete services team are flat out no matter what's happening. If you're cancelling an event, you've got hundreds of inquiries, you know, transfers, deferrals, refunds, all the rest of it. So we've never been busier. I can't say it's been an overly productive busy. We're getting very good at cancelling events and rolling out the messaging and the comms and the deferrals and transfers and everything. But at least we're not sitting around you know, sort of twiddling our thumbs. Yeah. And so the other thing we're obviously focusing on is getting the events that we do have left on the schedule, COVID safe plans approved. So we had some pretty positive news yesterday, day before. Ironman Sunshine Coast 70.3 had its COVID safe plan approved. So that's the first event that we've actually had a formal health body look at our plans and get the green light. So that happens in September. So fingers crossed that might be our first event back, given the regulations in Queensland. So that would be good for the team, and I think good for the industry. And yeah, because one thing we know is our athletes, they want to race. One thing we've seen in New Zealand is that after lockdown, the interest in our marathon and half marathon entries and things have been really strong. So when we're back and safe to do so, there's good demand there.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I appreciate your honesty, Dave, and your pragmatic approach. I think that's really important, isn't it, at this time? And I think that's interesting to hear that you've got that mindset at the moment. I did want to ask in terms of your planning events across different regions, and are you taking a sort of the same approach for each of those events, or is it very much a case by case? I imagine you're dealing with very different restrictions and from, I guess, stakeholders, but also the marketplace is probably in a different place as well. So how are you approaching that?
Yeah, look, you have to be very specific, and it is case by case. And look, even within state, when you're working under the same state guidelines, different local authorities have different philosophies and approaches. And you know, while Queensland state government has said, you know, with a COVID safe plan, you guys are good to go, you can deliver big events. Some local councils are not ready, you know, that they don't want big events taking place. So you've got to use your stakeholder management and persuasive skills, trying to, you know, convince people that, you know, with the right regulatory environment and the right plans and resources and capabilities, that you can deliver these events in a safe way. Because I mean, people are traveling to these regions anyway. You know, there's things going on all the time, and you know, I guess our view is that we can manage and track and trace and effectively control a lot of the risks that are around people coming to these regions. But so that's an ongoing discussion, and yeah, so it's a matter of monitoring. Obviously, Victoria's in a completely different situation to WA, and even though the health environment might be right for hosting events like in WA, with a hard border closure, you know, some of our events are not going to be viable because they rely so heavily on interstate and international travel. So it's certainly, there's a lot that goes into the mix as you're trying to work out whether you can proceed with an event or not. It's not just the health environment, it's the local environment, the finances, the market demand, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Dave. And as you said, I guess your team's doing a whole lot extra layer of planning on top of what we would normally have done. And yeah, that complexity and that uncertainty makes it very challenging, doesn't it? So yeah, look, I'd really like to bring Francis in as well around this. And Francis, you've had some interesting experience planning and delivering the UTR Pro Series over recent months across different parts of Australia. So perhaps if you can give us a little bit of a background on your role at Tennis Australia and that project, specifically how you found that this year.
Yeah, sure. Like the challenges that Dave speaks about, yeah, I can very much relate to that. So I'm sure we'll touch on those topics during the call. And you know, myself personally and my team, myself personally, I've been at Tennis Australia now for 18 years almost. So it's been a long journey, and mainly in the grassroots and aspiring professionals event management space. And my team and you know, the people around me specifically, we develop memorable events to try and achieve the Grand Slam objective of the company. So the Grand Slam champion objective, which is quite obvious probably to everyone, that we want to produce Australian Grand Slam champions like Ash Barty that we did last year. So the way we do that in our team is develop memorable events and bring athletes from all around the country together at certain times of the year, and that certainly happens at each school holiday period, mainly with our national championships that we play on all the Grand Slam services that people are familiar with, like the clay courts and the grass courts and the hard courts. But with the COVID-19 situation, we certainly had to pivot because we couldn't bring everyone together, and we haven't been able to bring anyone together for a national championship event. And I'm sure a lot of people listening on the call can relate to that work in sort of a national championship environment. So we had to come up with, you know, a new format, a new concept to try and help people still play tennis at a high level, but do it locally, I guess, because they couldn't travel across state borders, like Dave said. And you know, we were really fortunate that we've got some great partners. At about 18 months ago now, at the Australian Open 2019, we under Tennis Australia undertook a partnership with the Universal Tennis Rating Company, a company based out in San Francisco in the US, and so UTR for short. And you know, we're trying to help them produce a global rating system for tennis. Now, there's been a few a few attempts at this over the years, you know, in my 20 years in tennis, that people, companies, federations have been trying to do this. So it's not an easy task, and it's going to take a lot of time. And but we're certainly hoping that the UTR system is the one that can do it. And you know, so when everything got shut down, the global tours, the pro circuit, sort of that level underneath the ATP, WTA circuits that everyone's more familiar with, then it certainly opened up an opportunity to try and speed up the process of, you know, having these UTR events across the country. So, and that's what we've been doing with the UTR Pro Series. We had a situation where all our professional players were based back in Australia. Normally they're based all around the world. Now some of them are still based in overseas bases that they've got. So not all of them are back. Some of the names that people are familiar with. And so but we wanted to provide opportunities because, as Dave said, there's nothing better than actually competing. And a lot of athletes, a lot of our professional players were still training. Some of them were lucky enough to still have access to tennis courts and so forth, maybe people's backyards that they were training in the first lockdown, as I call it, since I'm based in Melbourne. But as soon as it started opening up in mid-May, we had an opportunity here to try and develop something, and that's where the UTR Pro Series came in. And, you know, speaking to all the players, they wanted matches, and some of them were really doing it tough with not earning prize money. So I said, okay, let's try and put on events that offers you matches and as much prize money as we can. Let's try and generate the revenue. And from an event management point of view, we go, well, how are we going to do this? Because we're all stuck in our homes. How are we going to do this? So that provided another complexity to it. And but it's been amazing to be on a team that's developed a concept, rolled it out, collaborated with people across all the local state and territory associations. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's a fantastic feat, I think, to be able to coordinate a complex event that's, you know, in such a changed environment, but also the environment that you're working from is quite different as well, isn't it? So I'm sure there's been a lot of little learnings about the way you've gone about it, which I'm really keen to hear about. What was it, a bit of a case of throwing the old event plan out and starting afresh, or was it more a matter of sort of layering in new requirements and aspects into the process.
Yeah, we had to re-look at how we did things because we're so used to, you know, being face to face. So we really had to innovate as to how we were going to implement some various tasks that we all knew how to do without really too much effort. But we go, well, how are we going to do this now that we can't meet each other? So, you know, this type of channel and forum was certainly a lot of those. It just felt like never-ending Zoom calls for sure. And there was a little bit of, you know, let's try and, you know, we had to think of a lot of new things to do, but there was certainly a lot of the old event plan that we could still roll out. And, yeah, so we didn't throw exactly everything out the window and start again, but certainly with a concept that we produced, we had to think outside the squares as to how it was all going to happen, communicate with various stakeholders, communicate with players actually was big as well. We're like, how are we going to are we actually sure that they want to play, and what format do they want to play? How many days of the week do they want to play? How many matches? So we had to get their commitment and buy-in. So that was important in the whole makeup of creating the format and concept that we did. Yeah,
interesting times, I'm sure. It sounds like you had some really great outcomes, and we'll come back to those and some of the learnings that you can share with us all. I'd love to bring Liam into the chat. Liam, you and your team have been doing some really great work over recent years, but recent months in terms of adapting to this current environment. But could you give us a bit of a background about your work and what you've been doing within your team?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And firstly, just to reiterate what Dave and Francis have said, it's been there's been so much work over the last few months. It's hard to describe, because what Dave said is right. People go, "Oh, what have you been doing?" There's no events on, but I don't remember being busier than the last few months. And it's you know, things are changing around you and popping around you, and it's a kind of really fluid environment. So it's been there's been a lot of work. In terms of our business, for those that don't know who iEDM is, we're a project management or project delivery business. Basically, we integrate project management, engineering, design, risk and safety advisory, and help our clients deliver infrastructure for major events and sports projects. That's our kind of speciality in this industry. So we work with clients where there's a large kind of or complex overlay build. So and we have a bit of a speciality in motorsport design, motorsport field of play, the technical elements around that. So where we've been working over the last few months is to help one of our key clients, Supercars Australia, in their return to racing strategy plans. We're lucky enough up on the Gold Coast, we operate in a co-working environment, and in that is a big innovation centre. So in that innovation centre, we're really quite lucky in how we were placed. There was a Queensland Health AI Institute that sat in there, and those guys got plucked out to lead the Southeast Queensland coronavirus response at the very start. So we were able to organise some meetings with them, which really put us on the front foot of how hospitals and health were dealing with their work health and safety requirements, so that they kept operating. They were the frontline workers. It got us into a position where we were able to really establish early on some strategies about how we would operate that minimum viable product for Supercars, which was a broadcast only event, if you like. That's the MVP that keeps the sport going, keeps the eyeballs on the TV, keeps some money flowing through the sport. And so that's where we started. And we were able to get that head start really easily or really quickly, and then started developing it from there. So, but it's been a really big process. So I can't understate the amount of work that's gone in, and from all parties. Supercars, a huge effort. The stakeholders and the governments have put in a massive amount of work.
Yeah, great. It sounds like you've reached a good point though, in terms of the planning and execution is occurring. So it's all happening.
Yeah, that's right. And it starts with the COVID safe plans, and then it filters down to your whole COVID safe system. So we've put a lot of work with consultants, medical consultants, into developing every procedure that you could think of, from how to wear a face mask to what to do if you have a suspected or confirmed case, so that we've got a really good amount of documentation to enable training to all levels of management or staff through an event. We've developed a bit of bespoke software with the client to help us manage that workplace health and safety requirement, do all that track and tracing. But yeah, we're in a good spot. So we've delivered 2 events now under the COVID safe plan, both in New South Wales. The first one was a broadcast only event at Sydney Motorsport Park, and the second event was going to be in Victoria. Yeah, it was going to be out at Winton, and last minute it was right at the very start of when Victoria was starting to have about 20 or 30 cases a day. The government and Supercars both jointly decided it was a good idea to move that event, so we moved that at the very last minute back up to Sydney Motorsport Park and had the second event up there. And we had a couple of thousand, and so it was the first event that we had some patrons, and we're following that up in a couple of weeks up in Townsville with up to 10,000 people. So a big event. So two months ago, I think we started down the line of we would do 6 months of broadcast only events, and had a kind of strategy in place for that. And that's to really quickly. So the fluid, that just being really fluid and agile in your approach is really important, because everything's changing and things are popping off around you all the time. And each state's a little bit different, even though they're largely the same. But so those local scenarios are really important to keep your finger on the pulse and just remain agile.
I think it's interesting, Liam. From my understanding, I think a lot of event management, project management skills have obviously been incredibly valuable to change plans and to evolve the way you work. Are there particular skills or things that you were doing which have been even more to the fore during this phase of planning? And obviously scenario planning and is obviously critical at this time, but there's certain things that you found your team really having to focus in on a lot.
The ability to conceptualize things is really important, and similar to what you do, Andrew, you really have to take that step back and understand what your project is. It's really important to have a fundamental view of what the purpose of your event is, what the purpose of what you're trying to do is, to enable you to focus on the things that really matter. We can't do everything in this environment. You're not going to get the same event experience that you had 6 months ago, and so you need to think about who's coming to your event, and in most cases it's going to be the core fan. It's going to be the core fan that really wants to be there. There is going to be concern in the public about hygiene and health, and so you have to consider all those things. But I think the core skill is just really taking that step back to take the helicopter view over what you're trying to achieve. I think that's really important in this environment, and then recreating the whole process. You got to basically start again.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, Liam, and I think it's interesting for us, someone who's been right in it and is, I guess, coming out the other side in some respects, in terms of having gone through a planning cycle and some delivery in terms of what you found important to focus in on. And Dave, I'd love to, I guess, hear a bit more from you in terms of, how the things you are doing differently, you have had to do differently, but also some of those things which have remained the same and you haven't sort of forgotten about doing within your processes and mindsets within your team.
Yeah, no, good. I'd firstly like to reinforce what Liam was saying, in that that adaptability to change is just fundamental now. I mean, if you'd said to me a year ago that we'd be making a go-no decision on an event that was 6 weeks out, I would have said, you're kidding, no way, we can't do that. And so the ability to scenario plan, have your options, and make calls really late depending on what is happening in the environment is pretty fundamental. And I think the other point Liam made was really strong as well, around boiling your event back down to its fundamentals. And we talk a lot about that now as like, okay, so, you know, we use this term bloat, so that, you know, as events evolve, especially the long-term ones, you know, they grow and grow, and, you know, you always want to improve them and add stuff and everything, and they just naturally grow.
Yeah.
And you get all these bolt-ons and things, and then in times like this, you've actually got to go back to the basics and work out what your customers actually value and what the experiences they really want, and distill it down to that. So that's been really useful for us, you know, particularly when you look at events like Noosa Triathlon, Sydney City to Surf, and, yeah, I mean, the chances of us getting an 80,000 person, you know, fun run up in this environment, we think is gradually slipping away. We're still hopeful we might get something up under reduced capacity, but yeah, being able to keep our options open and plan scenarios has been critical. So, but yeah, sort of back to your question, Andrew, I think, you know, things we're doing differently. I'm a bit of an old school person that I'm fundamentally a believer in the importance of face-to-face collaboration. And again, if you asked me a year ago, would the team be able to function, you know, as we have been so separated and over video conferencing, etc., I would have said, oh, I'm not sure. But the team's done an amazing job in keeping up that collaboration and communication, and always, I mean, people just spend all day on this stuff, which you know, I think it's been really positive. You know, and I think one of the silver linings that'll come out of that will be less travel in the future. I think in the even the long term, people will not see it as important. You know, sure, I mean, you still need to do some stuff face to face, but there's going to be a lot more stuff being able to be done over this, which I think is good for everyone. It's good for the environment and you know, people's balance of work and life stuff. So I think that'll be a change in the future. But otherwise, I think, you know, in terms of how we're thinking about the future, it's going to still be about boiling down to the fundamentals of what an event is and our event business, and that's delivering life-changing experiences for people in our environment. It's getting them active and out there, and I think there's still going to be a really strong demand for those types of things, even if they have to operate slightly differently and there's social distancing, whatever it might be. I think that human drive to connect with other people is still going to be there, and to get out and achieve sporting endeavours, you know, be it watching motor racing, you know, watching tennis, or, you know, doing a marathon. I think those are all, the drive's going to be there, the demand's going to be there. It's just we've got to keep evolving to create the environment to achieve that.
I think, yeah, it's a great point, Dave. And I think it's interesting hearing you talk about, I guess, having to do some things differently, but also, you know, mastering those fundamentals as well and understanding what's important. I think a lot of people, a lot of the leaders I've spoken to, I think we've gone through a bit of a cycle of reacting to the situation and looking for fixes. And but probably it's been time to take a bit of a deep breath and go, what is really important, and where should we be investing our time and money? And obviously resources are going to be tight for you know, the foreseeable future. So it's that question of what's important and what do people really want and what do we really need to do is a critical thing to be focusing on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the medium term, you know, no international travel, potentially limited interstate travel, I mean, our numbers are going to be impacted. So I think the corporate sponsorship market's going to be incredibly tough for the next 12, 18 months. We've had a few small ones actually even in the last few months, but I think the bigger picture, you know, is going to be challenging. And so, yeah, like I said, bringing your event back to its core is going to be really important to make sure you can actually still deliver these things at a break even or better level. Because yeah, it's going to be still a few rocks in the road ahead, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's necessary to have front of mind, isn't it? That's good advice, I think. Francis, I'd just love to come back to your experience, particularly in recent times of going through this whole planning and delivery process. Are there things that, having gone through that you would, it's the old question of would you do them differently, or what are you doing now, I guess, in terms of how you approach your planning that, you know, based on the learnings of that experience?
Yeah, I think, look, there's lots of things we're doing differently. You know, I think not that we weren't collaborating with the local staff in our state and territory offices, you know, before this pandemic, but we're now doing that more than ever because we certainly need, you know, no one's traveling. So normally, you know, myself and the team that I'm in, we would plan, we would do some collaboration on the ground with local staff, but then we would physically go there and deliver the event experience for people. So now that isn't actually happening, we have to rely upon the local staff on the ground even more, and then we're trying to help out with some tasks so that they don't have to do that. Well, we can do as much from here as we can. So some of those things have, with face-to-face collaboration, we used to do player meetings before the event. So we'd get everyone in a room and just go through how the event's going to run and everything and all the rules that players have to abide by. We ended up doing that virtually, and we were planning it and did 5 of those around the country in each city that the event was running in. And at the end of it, we go, I'm not sure why we weren't doing this 5 years ago, and we had the stress of trying to get people to this one place at a certain date and time, where we could have just recorded it like this and sent it out. And it's I can't see us ever getting that type of format that we did in the past ever again. So and it's the same with in tennis. A big part of the pre-event is doing the draw, and we used to do maybe some tournaments are bigger than others, but we do draw ceremonies and do big public events, and do come up with all sorts of ideas about how to do a draw creatively. And it's just picking names out of a hat, really, but we try and do it somehow that we get a media story. And you could probably YouTube all sorts of ideas that have happened over the past, but now that we can't do that face to face, well, it's obviously a toned down version of how to do a draw, and we're just doing it on our event management software. But again, it's just jumping on a call like this, and we took face to face for granted, but now we can add players, parents, coaches, and just show them how the draw is made, because out there in tournament and tennis tournament land, the integrity of the draw is very important, that it's done correctly and it's done in front of people and so forth. So that's going to be important for us in the future, perhaps to do it something within this channel is an idea that people have thought of. The players had to adapt as well. There was no ball kids on court, so we go, oh, okay, well, can they go and pick up their own balls and pick up their own towels?
Love it.
And so forth. And look, a lot of the players that we deal with, at the aspiring professional level, so we're not on TV all the time, are sometimes used to that. So, but there were some in there go, okay, yeah, that's an interesting one. And it adds to the length of matches as well. From an operational point of view, you can argue, well, it adds 5 or 10 minutes per set to the match. So that means finishing perhaps over the course of the day, it means finishing at 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock. And, that means paying overtime for people, and it pays, and all this type of considerations you have to put in your event budgets. So that's, I hope all kids don't, I'm sure they're going to be back at some point, but they're going to do things differently as well. Maybe they're never going to pick up the player's towel ever again that you've seen, and so forth. So maybe they have to wear gloves on court. Who knows? Like it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of it, and the players as well. The players, not coming with all their usual entourage, and while it's dialed down at sort of the level that I have, it's the players had to adapt and go, well, okay, we're only allowing one additional person with them, so maybe it's 3 or 4 sometimes that they've been allowed to, but we couldn't allow that under our COVID safe plan, and so they had to adapt as well. And even the big one, probably the big one, is the no handshaking at the end, just tapping the rackets, and the other one has been how we've been communicating with players. So that's a big part of how we organise the event beforehand, is making sure that all the athletes, all the coaches know what's going on. And normally it's just email communication, and then we hope they turn up. But we knew we had to over communicate with them, and we created WhatsApp groups. A number of different WhatsApp groups are all over the place on my computer screen, and just so they can also communicate with us very easily. So they didn't, we don't have our desk phones in the office anymore, obviously, so a quick text that players, coaches, parents can send to us is the best way to the best way to communicate, and I think that's going to be important in the future as well.
I think it's a really good observation around it's not just the event organisers having to adapt, it's going to be the whole environment around it with customers, participants, stakeholders, whatever it is. It's a really solid point, Francis. And for us, it's going to be no functions. Aid stations are going to look different. Your finish line experience, where you normally get that moment of a medal over the neck, is going to change, and so it's things are going to look different for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's always interesting, isn't it? What I love some of your examples about asking why didn't we do it this way earlier, and I guess there's some positive changes come from this catalyst in our lives, but I guess making sure we retain those positive changes and ask those questions of why we're doing certain things will get some good progress and momentum in terms of how we provide our experiences.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good, and this whole series has opened up the idea to innovate really and adapt, but innovation is the one that we've been trying to do more and more of, and why really ask ourselves why we were doing tasks a certain way, and now that we've done them a different way, like Dave said, you wouldn't have thought of that last year, 2 years ago, 6 months ago, but now we can do it a certain way because we've been forced to do it a certain way, and it's ended up being better for all of us. So that's, I think, even in the next 6 months, as perhaps we start to open up, there's going to be more things that we can innovate, and I'm sure that's going to come through in the event experience that everyone sees.
Yeah, it seems important to keep an eye out for those opportunities to make changes or retain good things, doesn't it? And as to Dave's point as well, understanding what that means for different groups of people within your event, and making sure that we're aware of the kind of knock-on effects as well. There's some interesting examples you've all provided around things that have changed which we might not have expected or anticipated. By changing one thing, many things changed. So it's all about planning and evolving, isn't it? I think, Liam, I'd love to get your perspective as well in terms of the things that you're having to focus in on a lot more right now, or think we should be focusing on more, either as event professionals, as individuals, or as event teams or organisations, or even what you're sort of suggesting to your clients that needs to be a focus for the short term and then longer term. So your thoughts on those focal points? Yeah,
we're kind of stretching out what Francis and Dave just spoke about, that change to all levels or participants or work streams within these events. It has changed for everyone, and I think the opportunity there is to build the culture of these things. So the whole everyone's in this together part is really true, and so what we're seeing is this really strong merge between all of the different work streams. We've got athletes doing inductions and training to come to a particular event, and checking in. Like, that stuff doesn't really happen that much in sport. So everyone knows that they've got to do it. The volunteers, there's a stronger engagement with volunteers. And I think at an organizational level, what we're seeing is that there's a stronger engagement between the different work streams is leading to an improvement in culture, I think, or there's an opportunity for improvement in culture. I think that's really important. At an industry level, like I just keep encouraging people to support each other. Like the AMC thing that Dave's involved with is really great, and we want to make sure that doesn't go away. Like, this problem's going to be in our industry for the next really 3 to 5 years until we get onto the other side of it. So I'd like to see people keep supporting each other. If you're a leader in the industry, make the effort to make a phone call a day, call a supplier or a staff member, check in with how people are going. It's amazing kind of what that does to people, I think. And it helps everyone, helps everybody. At an organizational level, it's just being nimble and agile. I think that's the most important thing. I look at that innovation center that we're a part of up on the Gold Coast, and it's kind of opened my eyes to the whole startup world over the last couple of years, and I think there's a lot that us as organizations and events can take from that. Think of ourselves like startups. What startups do really well, because they have to go through so many levels of funding, is they really understand their business, the purpose of their business, and what they're there to do, and they create plans around that. So they look at their resources, their customers, their competitors, their industry as a whole, and they have to articulate that. And I think probably if you look at our industry, you could probably count. We'd probably have enough fingers between us to count the amount of businesses that were started with a business plan. If you think of everyone, like, it's all just come from an opportunity to start something, and then it rolls onto something else, and the good businesses keep going because they create good opportunities or experiences or whatever, or create good relationships. But it's it's the time now to really sit back and understand what your business is and kind of roll that forward. And I just encourage everybody to do everything in the long term. Like, everything's a long-term play. Like, there's no short-term plays at the moment. Nothing's going to make sense for the next 3 years. So you just got to remain agile, think about the long term, and just embrace relationships. Really, really work on your relationships, both up and down your supply chain.
That's great, Liam. It's been a takeaway from me from a lot of the leaders we've spoken to is it's a lot of it's about mindsets and how we approach our work and look after each other, but also your point around short-term and longer-term thinking. I think that's really important to balance out at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I think you'll see, like, it's a small industry here. I think if you start seeing people cannibalize their competition or promoters push down unreasonable or unsustainable type of models to suppliers, like, that doesn't get forgotten. I think what we really need to be operating in a long-term relationship sense. Pick the partners that you want to be a part of your project or your event, and really partner with them in a really honest and honest way to move forward, so that everyone succeeds and gets through and create strong businesses that in 5 years' time we're kind of all booming again.
Yeah, that's great. Dave, I was on a similar thing. I was interested in your thoughts in terms of you're leading a large team, and what sort of skills, mindsets you think are going to be important for us as people in our industry over the coming years. I think most of the people, I think, tuning into this are looking to develop and evolve, and I think we all probably need to be in today's world. So what do you think are sort of the skills or mindsets or things that we should be trying to work on over the coming months and years?
Yeah, look, I've always been a believer in goal setting and having something to aim for. You got to know where you're sailing the ship, and I use this really naff analogy with my team, which I'm sure they all hate, but I'm like, we're sailing along on the ship towards our destination. We have a really good strategic plan. We put a lot of work into. We've collaborated a lot around that. It starts from our values and then builds into initiatives, and then all measurable outcomes, all the stuff you guys will all be familiar with. And then we're getting hammered by storm after storm after storm. And the analogy I use is the ship's taken on water, but we're all at the bilge pumps, and we're all singing sea shanties and having a good time while we're stopping the ship from going down. So, and it's all about, I think Liam touched on a couple of good points: communication, having a vision. And what creates great culture, I've seen in my past, is either a burning platform, and we've got a pretty big one at the minute, or an aspiring vision. And if you've got one or both of those, then you can align your people behind those. And you just got to be authentic, transparent, upfront, promote good communication, be honest with people, treat them with respect, all the basic human traits that we all know. So, and that doesn't change in a crisis. I think what happens in a crisis is you get a spotlight on this stuff, right? And if you're short on any of those areas, they come up pretty glaringly obvious, and so we've, to Liam's point again, is that we've had a bit of a mantra since the start of the crisis is to help motivate and keep people connected while they're at home in these environments is set weekly goals and have daily check-ins. So even if it's 2 minutes, how you going, you're right, quick video call, something like that. So And then, you know, we do sort of on average about a fortnightly broadcast update where I talk to the team, keep them informed, tell them what's going on. Even if there's no news, there's nothing worse than sitting in silence, you know, not knowing what's going on, because, you know, the way the human brain works, you think, oh shit, things must be getting bad. I'm not hearing anything, something bad's coming. So if you keep people informed with what you know, when you know, and that's all you can do, you know. We just had to go through a very, very difficult, couple of weeks with downsizing our business, with cancelling so many events and so forth. So we had to lay off about 30% of our workforce, which was, it's incredibly difficult for the team and the culture and stuff. But because we have got a culture of transparency and openness and good dialogue and stuff, the feedback I had from the team, and in particular the people who were laid off, was incredible. You know, they were thanking me, you know, and it's heartbreaking stuff, you know, in this environment. And we certainly fought and held on as long as we could before having to make those difficult decisions. But yeah, so I'm probably a bit off track there, rabbiting on, but that's kind of the basics of how we've been operating.
No, I appreciate that insight, Dave. I think there's a lot of organisations, or I think every organisation is going through similar scenarios in different ways. So I think it's really important for us to hear about how you're coping with that at the different levels. I think so many of us are sitting at home or sort of in small teams or a little bit isolated. So I think it's really valuable for us to understand what's going on and how people are approaching it. So I think it's really, really really useful and valuable for us to have that insight. I just noticed Hannah Bailey posted a question in the chat as well, basically relating to have any of you had feedback or research back from your participants, fans, or your audiences around their expectations and around COVID safe events. I know there's been some research done, and each organisation is probably looking into their own audiences, but would anyone like to pick up in terms of what the expectations from your audiences may be in this new environment?
I'll pick that one up from Hannah. I think everyone's expecting there to be a level of management, hygiene management, protection. There is still a real fear of this disease in the community, so we all have to be cognizant of that. No, I don't know if anyone picked up when Disneyland opened, you know, the social media storm that picked up with people in lines and queues and those sorts of things. So people are expecting to be for the things to be in place that are in their everyday lives. So, you know, X's on the ground of where to stand and you know, so there's how that's communicated is probably different for each event. So I know in Townsville we're planning to have kind of fun COVID marshals, if you like. So there'll be some monitoring by some people who are almost entertainers, if that's a way to put it. People who are really kind of bringing up the vibe, not kind of putting it down and making it a positive experience. But certainly your communication to your patrons has to start from when they're looking to buy a ticket. So at that interest level, when they buy a ticket, you need to make sure that you're sending out text messages and emails and all sorts of bits before the event to make sure that if they have any flu-like symptoms or any of those sorts of things, that they're not coming. So it really gets drummed down into them, over a long period of time. But what we are finding is that everyone is approaching it in a really good manner. Anyone who's coming to an event understands what's going on and understands that it's not going to be normal, from workforce to volunteers to patrons. So everyone's embracing the new normal, if that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Liam. I think it's a good reminder that people's expectations are going to be the same whether they attend an event or, you know, you don't get a free pass just because it's sport or entertainment. People will expect things to be in place that they see in other environments, and you know, we need to fulfil those expectations. I agree with you. I think we'll certainly have people being very accepting of events will be difficult environments to organise and coordinate, and then that our audiences will probably give us a little bit of grace there, but certainly the expectations are, and we can't afford any situations where events fail to provide safe environments, and that could set us back quite a way in terms of our progress as well.
Yeah, massively. And the other lesson is that when you look at where people have got it wrong, is that they'll let you know, and they'll let you know hard, and it'll end up being quite public. So you do have to really be on the front foot and managing in a really strong manner. And in terms of all the events around Australia, we're all in this together too. So we all need to perform really well so that the rest of us can keep continuing on. We don't want our industry to be the private security guards of Melbourne type thing, you know, like it was terrible for their industry, and we don't want the same effects on ours. So everybody has to be, you know, punching above their weight.
Yeah, that was key for us as well in the UTR Pro Series. Even like we didn't have the complexity of having crowds, so we said no spectators at the events, even though they were played on Pat Raft Arena in Brisbane and Sydney Olympic Park, where there's, you know, you can fit 5,000-10,000 people. But you know, we wanted to do just a broadcast only event, and but we had to make sure that the players bought into that as well. And but the expectations from the players now is that, or it was at the start, is that this was going to be a safe event. There was going to be protocols in place, but we expected them to adhere to those. And even away from the event, even though we weren't doing sort of player hubs as some of the major sports are doing, we told them, well, you have to behave, you know, as best as you can. Like, don't go out. As you know, if you don't have to go out, don't go out during the event. You know, if you end up in a hot spot that's, you know, been publicly, tell us, and so we can communicate to people. You know, it's all these, all the players were, and coaches and so forth were really respectful of that, but they sort of knew that, well, they were expecting that the protocols were in place, and we were following them as well.
The only thing I'd add to that from our end is we've got on the front foot, and we've got the benefit of a big global engine behind us, and we've actually produced like a video as to what you're going to expect when you turn up to an event. So
yeah, cool.
People will, you know, understand what a check-in process is going to look like, that there might not be a welcome function like there ordinarily is, how an aid station is going to work, what your finish line experience is going to be. So that's all been, the team up in Boulder got a whole triathlon set up and videoed it all as to how it's all going to roll out. So that's going to be useful, and you know, the feedback so far on that stuff has been good. So people are expecting the events to look and feel a bit different. You know, the reality will be when we're actually delivering them again, what the experience is how well it's received.
It's a great example, Dave. I think, yeah, that we know at the best of times, events are complex with many different people and expectations and many moving parts. So the communication and communicating what people can expect are a pretty good strategy to help us manage that, isn't it? So that's a good example. Thank you. We're coming towards the end of our hour very quickly. So I just wanted to go back to each of you for a final thought in terms of perhaps your future priorities, or any advice or things that you think our audience should take away with them. So Francis, I might come back to you in terms of final thoughts to share today.
Yeah, well, probably a lot of it's been said, and it's I can reiterate what Liam and Dave were saying about having a strategy for your event. If you're deciding to do an event at this time, you've got to make sure you've got one, because there's no point getting halfway through and going, what are we doing all this for, type of thing. So, you know, we had that for the UTR Pro Series, that we wanted to give as much prize money and match opportunities for the players based in Australia as we could, and everything else revolved around that. So if we had to do a bare bones event budget to ensure that we were able to provide as much prize money during this time for players, then that's what our decisions were based around. And I keep saying this even to local tennis clubs around the country that might organise an Easter tournament. Now there's 50 or 100 Easter tournaments around the country perhaps, but why are people going to come to your event? And what are you doing it for? Why are you going to put so much effort in? and it's sometimes staggering how many people, how many clubs come back to me and go, oh, I don't know why we're doing this. We're just doing it because someone told us we've always been doing it. Mm-hmm. So it is, I think, during this time when it's going to be so much more work, so many more protocols to follow, that you're doing that event for the right reason, for whatever, whether it's volunteering at a club or doing it professionally. So I think time management. Mm-hmm. So Dave mentioned about just workforces being downsized. We went through that as well in the last few months, and being respectful of people who perhaps are only working part-time now. Some people just across the company at Tennis Australia are working different hours, different days. So, I think most people in our company now are, working 3 days at least. So it's the Monday to Wednesday. So your time management skills have to be, for that Monday to Wednesday period, pretty spot on. And then just be respectful about not contacting people on Thursday and Friday if they're not working Thursday and Friday, and doing the best you can, and trying to hold off until that following Monday. I think that balance between work and life at this time and is important. So I like the idea of checking in with people. That's great. And like I think Liam and Dave already mentioned it, but being flexible and adaptable. That probably wasn't sometimes the first thing we'd say about events. 6 months ago, a year ago, you'd say, someone comes to you with a last minute change and you go, no, we can't change it. This is the way we've planned it. We've planned it for 12 months to be this way, but now we have to be, I think, more flexible and adaptable than ever if the last minute change has to happen because there's been a hotspot that's, been popped up or whatever. You have to do it. There's no other way around it. So I think that's going to be key. And, all the scenario planning, I think sometimes you hear about the scenario planning, it's frustrating because you're basically playing an event 5 times. So and what Liam says with Dave is that the amount of work then just, is just massive. People say, well, like you said, there's no events on, but you're playing an event and you're not just planning it once like the old days. You're planning it 5 times for 5 different scenarios. So I don't think, just trying not to get frustrated that it's going to be wasted work. Okay, yes, in the end there's going to be one scenario and the other 3 or 4 scenarios that you've worked on is going to be wasted work, but who knows whenever those scenarios are actually going to happen, so down the track. So if this virus is around for a few years, I'm sure those scenarios that you've planned out, perhaps now or in the next few months, they're going to come into play at some stage.
Excellent. Yeah, that's really, really good thoughts to share. Thanks, Francis. Yeah, I'd certainly appreciate your going back to some of those first principles of asking why something's happening, but also the environment that we're working in today is very much changed, and respecting how people are working across your team. I think, great call outs to have front of mind. Thank you. Liam, I'll come to you in terms of final thoughts or things we could take away from today.
Yeah, just 2 things, Andrew. Again, what Francis said as well, like for anyone planning an event, don't underestimate the workload. I think probably all of us and probably everyone watching knows that you can't overstate the amount of work that goes into a first time you've done an event. And doing these events, even though you might have done them before, it's that type of workload, it's that type of scenario. There's a lot of hours that are going into it. So don't underestimate it, resource it properly, and break your teams up accordingly. Second, again, I know I say this a lot, but it's just about embracing relationships and always acting in that long term. Nothing's going to make sense in the short term for our industry over the next 1 to 2 years. So always keep in mind that long-term play, the long-term vision for your business or project or event or whatever it might be.
Brilliant. Thanks for them. Yeah, really, really great to have front of mind. It's really, really insightful. Thank you. Dave, your final thoughts to take away as well?
Yeah, I'll just probably add one more thought, and that is that challenge between needing to make the hard decisions and move forward, and when to hang on and delay a decision. That's kind of the dichotomy that we deal with on a daily basis. And my advice to anyone is, look, in this environment, there's no right or wrong. And if you for your business need to make a decision, then make the decision, make the hard call. I mean, it's not easy cancelling stuff, turning stuff on its head or whatever. But if in your gut you've got to make the call, just make it. And then it's amazing what a weight comes off your shoulders and the business can move forward. But that's got to be balanced by when you know when to hang on. And, can we just wait for a bit more information on this, see what happens over here? That's the sort of default position, right? In this environment, you go, well, maybe if we just wait another couple of weeks, things might improve here or there or change or whatever. So, but at some point, you have to make decisions. So I'm not giving much practical advice, except that when just make the calls and move forward.
I think that's really good, Dave. I think that's excellent advice. And if I could add one thing to that, it's that don't be afraid to change course once you've made the decision. Like we're going to change course 50 times, over the next couple of years, and you just have to be ready to and not be embarrassed about it. Just that's the way it is. You change course, you're going to do a lot.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Look, we're coming towards the end of our hour, so thank you very much for your giving up your time today, and I'm sure we'll all take a huge amount away from today's discussion. I think some really some great advice, very generous with your thinking, and I think that'll give us a lot of confidence about the way we're doing some of our work, or the ways we can be approaching our work. So thank you, Dave. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Liam. Really do appreciate you joining us today. Thank you everyone for joining us, for tuning in. Really appreciate you supporting the show. We'll continue these until they keep offering value. The next show's in 3 weeks' time. We're lining up another great panel of guests, so please join us if you can. Welcome feedback, thoughts, things that you'd like us to be unpacking and discussing. Please drop me a line. If I can help you at all, if you enjoyed today's show, they're all online on the website. There's also the podcast version of the show where we spend a bit more time with different guests. So please jump into those. Hopefully they can help you navigate your way through the industry. I'm obviously working with people, with teams to help them design their experiences, and there's lots of information and downloads on my website. So please jump into that if that's going to be of help to you. But thanks once again to our panelists. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks,
Andrew. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dave. See you, Francis.
See you guys.
Thank you all. Thanks.